We're here today with Mia Yugo, head of our white collar division. Mia, what did you think about the Netflix show Inventing Anna?
I thought that show was very clever.
And what in particular was clever about it?
Well, you have this 20-something-year-old foreign girl who is on an expiring visa and yet somehow manages to convince hotels, bankers, and venture capitalists to part with thousands of dollars and to almost part with millions of dollars. It's certainly very impressive.
Now, in the show, the character Anna gets charged with fraud. Now, is that the same thing as the type of fraud you deal with the False Claims Act?
So no, it's not. The False Claims Act is a civil statute that deals with fraud committed against the government. So for example, fraud against Medicaid. What the show is dealing with is other types of criminal fraud.
And what are some of those other types of criminal fraud you're talking about?
So the big ones would be wire fraud, mail fraud, mortgage fraud.
All right, and just real quick, what is wire fraud?
Wire fraud is basically anytime you're using interstate wire communications to further your fraud scheme. So for example, you're using your phone or the computer or the internet.
All right, and you said interstate, so I guess that would only kick in when you're texting or emailing someone outside of the state you live in.
No, interestingly enough, when you're sending these communications, these emails are bouncing off of servers everywhere. So almost every time you send an email, it's an interstate wire communication.
Okay, why do we call it wire fraud?
Well, because back in the day, people actually used to use telegraphs to communicate. And of course, at that time, you had actual wires. So we've kept the name. It's just the means of communication that have changed.
All right, and what about mail fraud?
So mail fraud is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you're using the mail, like the U.S. Postal Service, to advance your fraud scheme.
All right, and who handles prosecuting wire fraud, mail fraud, and these other types of criminal fraud you're discussing?
So that's all handled by government prosecutors, usually at the federal level.
All right, and who handles the False Claims Act fraud?
So False Claims Act is a little bit more interesting because it could be either the federal prosecutors or it could be your own private attorney or it could be both, depending on whether or not the government has chosen to intervene in your case.
Interesting. All right, well, if someone thinks that they've discovered fraud either by their employer or someone else, what should they do next?
They should consult a whistleblower attorney in their area. Obviously, we're here in Virginia, so if you're located in Virginia, we'd be happy to give you a free consultation. If you're not here and you're watching this video, you should find an attorney that's in your area who could give you a consult.
Thanks, Mia.
Thank you.